Hey guys, it's Whitney over at Raygun. I am just going to walk you through a really quick high-level view of our full platform, which is made up of two products. On the front end is Pulse, our real-time user monitoring, and the back end is crash reporting. What we're looking at right now is actually a full high-level view of the health of your page through an application dashboard. So whether it's a mobile or desktop application, you would have this view. We're specifically looking at a desktop application today. So what you're seeing is in the last 24 hours, my total users, new users, average user satisfaction, as well as crash-free users. The crash-free users number is pretty important. You want to be as close to 100 as possible. Again, here are the sessions in the last 24 hours. So how many times a user has interacted with your site in a 30-minute chunk of time. And you can see highs and lows throughout the day here. On the right-hand side, most recent requests. So what are the most recent requests that have come in on what page and what country are they located in, as well as errors in the last 24 hours here at the bottom. Next, I'm going to take you over to our custom dashboards. These are a pretty cool feature for a team, individual, or high-level view of what you guys are focused on. You have the ability to, 100% build this to your specifications if you're focused on load times, a specific error group, health of a specific page or application, iOS versus Android. You can track all of this right here, which is pretty cool. You have unlimited of these on enterprise, and I think it's limited to 5 on mid-market. Next, we are taking a view of crash reporting here. So again, this is the crash reporting dashboard. In the right-hand corner here, you can customize the length of time you're looking at. So if you're wanting a day up to 6 months, you do that here, as well as filters. So if you're wanting to focus on a specific browser like Chrome versus Safari, that's where you would choose that here, and the information shown below would then transform to only show you a Chrome-specific data in the last week. As you move down the page again here, you're going to see a couple different tabs: errors active, resolved, ignored, and permanently ignored. So our active errors here are the errors that are currently happening within this application. Resolved errors are errors that were resolved with a new version release, and they're not going to pop back up unless it's a version after that. Ignored errors, so an error that was logged one time that you're not going to worry about, but if it happens again will pop back into active. And permanently ignored error. A permanently ignored error is something like a third party or something that's irrelevant you're not going to fix. We're going to permanently ignore that, meaning we're not going to alert you if it happens again. However, we will keep tabs on it and keep a count going. Next, what I want to look at here is in the active error session. You can see the full list. You can see that you can view this by, the largest amount of users affected or the largest amount of errors happening. You can see here, this is a look at an active error. So right here, you can see one number, which is going to be much lower. Once we click into the active error, it's actually going to show you a full summary on the right-hand side. Before we go through that summary though, I'm going to have you take a look at this right-hand corner. This is where you can actually change this status of the error from active, resolved, ignore, or permanently ignore, or if it was resolved in a version, you can mark that version so it's only going to track that error moving forward after that version was released if it becomes relevant in the next release or regression. Right below that, you can actually assign this to a user. So if you're on the back-end team and for some reason it was a front-end issue, you could actually do that right here. We do have some really cool Slack or HipChat integrations, which would alert them of that error, which is pretty nice. You can see that this number on the right-hand side summary is much higher than the active error we just looked at on the previous page. You can see the active users affected by this error, as well as the full history. So you can see, okay, this error started about 2 years ago, probably just happened again in the last 5 minutes, and what browsers and versions are affected by this error here on the right-hand side. Next, we're going to jump to the top of the page again. You can see all these different tabs happening. Right here is a summary with relevant Stacktrace. You can customize all of this by choosing and selecting the stars on the right-hand side of what you want to see included in there. Then you can see error details. You can see requests here, environments, custom sessions. So if you're wanting to navigate through a session of someone who had caused this error, you'd be able to do it right here to see what navigation it took to get there. breadcrumbs, as well as raw data. So if you're wanting to export this data for whatever reason, you have the ability to do that right here, up to 6 months, as well as using the export button on the left-hand side under crash reporting if it's going to be a larger export. Next, we are going to run into Pulse, which is our real-time user monitoring. What we're looking at here is actually live updates. So in real time, this will actually update as users pop on and off your site. You can see overall health score again, average load time, sessions, users, and recent crashes in real time. You can see active users here with a breakdown of new and returning, live session counts in the last couple minutes here, as well as the 24-hour trend. In addition to this great map showing you by color how many users you have globally. If you're not a global company, we can break this down as granular as zip code or just countrywide. Next, we're going to jump into performance. This just gives you an overall health of your pages, both virtual and static. It's going to give you median load times, your most requested pages at the top here. And P90 is the 90th percentile load times that shows the 10% of users having the worst experience. And obviously the 99th would be the 1% of users having the worst experience with load times on your site or within your application. Next, I'm going to jump into a specific page and just show you guys a little bit how you can see what is actually taking the time. Is it the rendering? Is it the latency? You know, what's having such a factor in causing it to be over, you know, an unsatisfactory load time. You can see how many views are on this page as well as visitors. You can see the load time distribution over the last week, as well as the timeline of the things that are loading and rendering on there. At the bottom, it gives you a nice little summary of, you know, time spent on this page over the last week, as well as slowest and most requested assets. Next, this is going to give us a session count in the last week or whatever custom amount of time you set it to. You can see who those users were, what their sessions were, and their median length spent on this application. Next is our users. So this is pretty cool. It breaks down new users versus returning users and their crash-free experience there. So we're pretty high, as close to 100 as we can possibly get. That's where we want to stay. You can see the user traffic over the last week here, as well as the user satisfaction over time. Again, user satisfaction is key in making sure you have happy customers interacting with your site. Excellent and average experiences will most likely return, where poor are at risk of maybe, you know, removing your application if it's a mobile phone or not returning to your site. Again, so you obviously want to make sure you can either contact these guys and say, hey, sorry for the bad experience, or at least understand why they left their site by seeing their navigations. Next, we're going to jump over to the browser breakdown. This gives you a full view of where your people are between browsers. So for us, we're pretty Chrome heavy, and then it goes down from there. And it also gives the average load time broken out by browser over the last week here. One other great thing is the top 50 browsers that are being used by version. So you can group these by browser and see, you know, where your highlights are. Sometimes people just haven't uploaded or upgraded their browser, which is causing some poor load times. Next, we're going to jump to platform. This one's pretty cool. It actually compares mobile to desktop, as well as breaking out all the different platforms on top here. Once again, you can see the top 50 platforms by version and where your users are. Finally, we're going to jump back over to the geographical location. The cool thing about this is if you're on an enterprise platform, you have the ability to get as granular as zip code, really focus in and see what your load times are, where you're having great success, where you can probably use some improvement, and gauge that based off how many users you have in that area and how many users are actually affected by it. For example, I'll drill into this here. You can see the health, the average load times, and the requests in the last week. How many new users I have there, last 10 requests, and last 10 users on this page. Lastly, I am going to take you to users. So this is kind of cool. We actually are able to identify both authenticated and non-authenticated users and group them to create a profile. So that's what you're seeing here in this list. And this is actually a profile for a user. As you can see, this is an authenticated user. We're able to pull some details like a photo based off their email or IP address. And you can actually see a full list of devices here on the right and full list of versions that they have interacted with our site. You can see a summary of the user experience, how many total sessions, average load time, and average session length, which is pretty important if you guys have some VIP customers you're wanting to track to make sure they're having a good, interaction, or someone's calling in on customer service. This would be a great way for you guys to assist them and really know where they're at in their experience as a whole with your site. Next, you'll see the sessions here on the right-hand side. This is every single time they've ever interacted, where they've spent their time in the navigation through there. I'll jump into one of those in just a minute here. At the bottom, you can see user error history, how many errors they've ever had and been affected by, total groups, and the last time they were affected, and if there were any active currently, they'd be at the bottom of the page here. Now I'm going to jump you into a session really quickly here. Again, you're going to have the summary at the top, session lengths, average page views, all that good stuff at the top. And then you have the ability to actually see where they spent their time on static and virtual pages. If there's one page in particular that's taking a long time to load, you would have the ability to jump into that page to see the performance of it and really drill in to see the issue. If there was an error, again, you could click into that error to see what was happening, but also you would have that 360 view through the navigation as well to see exactly how they ended up there to cause that error. One last place I'm going to take you guys before we wrap up is deployments. This is a pretty cool feature if you guys are doing continuous integrations or deployments. We're able to track your deployments here and actually compare them against how they affect the user. So if they're causing crashes, you'd see that here in comparison to the deployments. And then in the actual deployment page here, you can see how many deployments you've done in any given day, who is responsible and deployed that deployment, and at what time. Once you actually click into that specific version that was deployed, it's going to show you in the error group here, you're going to see regression. So did that cause an error to flare back up? Are there new errors since this was deployed? And is there errors still occurring that were supposed to be fixed? It's actually going to show you that right here. In notes, you can see internal notes that are made for the team, as well as commits internally. So that's kind of a wrap on our full platform. We also have quite a few integrations. I'll take you over there for a second, including Jira. We have some alerting systems like PagerDuty, other things like GitLab, Visual Studio's team services, just to try and make this as easy as possible for you guys to interact with on a day-to-day basis. If there's something that you would like to see as far as integration that you don't see on here, there's potential we have a workaround for that already, or if it's not something, we could be willing to build it out. So thank you for a few minutes today.